This is a recording of an Egg Space hosted by Her Majesty Queen Bee and your Uncle Owl. To join these spaces every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, check the show notes for details.
Welcome. This I'm going to change the title here coming up soon. It says Homeschool and Curriculum. This evening is part 2, the second discussion we have had on the subject of curriculum, because this year, starting at the beginning of the year, we have decided to take seriously the major concerns of what you should be thinking about for homeschooling. If you're already homeschooling, some major things to take seriously. And if you are not yet homeschooling and you're thinking about it, these are the things you should be concerned about. And the first 2 topics we decided to cover are 2 topics that you should not be worried about. And they are socialization, making sure your kids are properly socialized, and curriculum. Both of those are not only not major concerns, they are anti-concerns, as in it doesn't mean you don't want to take them seriously. It means in the government education plan, socialization and curriculum are not handled well at all, period. We think of them as being as such. We think that they are quite professional when actually it is a cookie cutter manufacturing General Motors assembly plant, and it is not designed well for actual humans. And so you will do a much better job of socializing your children and getting them curriculum that's good for them on your own through the interwebs. There's plenty of great resources out there. And so this is part 2 of discussing how it's not that curriculum full stop doesn't matter. It should not be a concern for people who are considering homeschooling, because you are going to figure out that at home you can do the best job of curating curriculum for your children, better than anyone will possibly do at the government education federal penitentiary system. And I say that as a person who I feel that I got
Amen.
I feel that I got a decent education when I was a child, and so did my oldest brother, who was valedictorian, and he and I both at one point had a pretty long conversation where we realized that that was probably the case because of how much we worked on what we wanted to be good at, and that we got a good education in spite of the system, not because of it. And so we wanted to talk about that. Last week, we definitely just sort of opened up the can of worms and discussed curriculum from a bunch of angles. But this evening, I thought we would deconstruct and dismantle the concern of curriculum for your children who are homeschooled by telling some stories. And that means everyone should be involved and can be involved with telling stories. I'm going to ask you, some people even, to take seriously the idea of telling your story, even if you weren't homeschooled, because it's going to be very helpful in recognizing what it is about curriculum that makes us feel that it is important, because it is, but why the government box down on the street looks at the problem of curriculum in the worst possible way, which is manufactured General Motors assembly plant, instead of taking care of what people actually need for the sake of curriculum. And it's going to be proven, because if you look at everyone's story of how they learned what and what they learned that was important for them, you will discover that it will not follow a standard General Motors assembly plant curriculum. It will not, in any case. And I've got a bunch of stories, and I bet Queen Bee does too. And my guess is you do too. And it will be fun to hear everyone's story and realize how different everyone's learning and experience with different academic concerns and different trades that they got good at, and different disciplines and abilities and capabilities that they worked on at different times, and why that is so normal and good and the right way to approach making your children successful, instead of worrying about cookie cutter, planned in certain time increment and increases in difficulty and quality. That's just it is a crazy, strange way to think of how humans develop. And so we wanted to tell some stories. I've got a few. I know that Queen Bee does. I see KSJ down there. You're welcome to come up. Please do. Nicole, I see you too. Time Trek Learner, you're always welcome. Bowtied CFI, see you down there. It's good to see you. We got a Swamp Pigeon. We love our birds, so you're welcome to come up too. And Fight with Memes, totally. It's really good to see you guys. Freewheeling Mama, I'm sending you an invite too as well. by all means, we all come up because we're going to tell some stories tonight. And it's going to start with me prompting the Queen herself, Her Majesty, to tell story number one. She mentions a number of times, she mentions her brother, who really dug in when he was about to wanted to be a part of a school. So he dug in on math, and he got so good at math that he just sank deeply into the engineering and math. And he got so good at it that eventually, I believe it was something like NASA paid for his graduate or PhD work.
Yeah. Great.
And so it's fun it'd be nice to unpack that and tell a little more of the nitty gritty of the story from like late elementary to getting to high school.
Okay.
See, Al, this is why I love you, because all I said was I don't believe in curriculum, and I had no idea what you were going to say, but we're on exactly the same page. But yeah, let's hear
Yes,
about
sir.
the spaceman with his head in the clouds.
So, yeah, well, when you said that, Phoenix, I mean, Uncle Owl and I are quite on the same page as you as this. So my brother, he was the youngest. So the funny story is he actually started going to public school in first grade. My mom, our history is like up and down with schooling. And he went to public school for first grade. My mom pulled him out about halfway through. And the reason she pulled him out was because he was getting in a lot of trouble. He was just a very busy kid, like all little boys are. And he couldn't sit at a desk because he's a little boy in first grade. And also, we were living in Texas, and it wasn't legal to homeschool in Texas until that year. And my mom found out, and she's like, all right, we're going back to home. We had previously lived in Colorado, and it was legal to homeschool. Well, it was a gray area in Colorado when I was little. So my mom anyways, long story, even longer. So my brother was pulled out halfway through first grade. He got homeschooled. And when I say homeschooled, homeschooling was different in the 80s, 90s. I guess that was 90s. Early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. Homeschooling was very different. You weren't allowed to buy curriculum at all. You had to show proof that you were a teacher to buy curriculum. So the early pioneer homeschoolers didn't buy curriculum. They made their own. And a lot of it is still around today, but most of it's not, but there's a lot that still is. And so you kind of made your own curriculum. My mom bought some curriculum from like homeschool, like curriculum fairs and stuff like that, but she'd have to go to a bigger city to get those. So it wasn't always very easy to get. So she didn't have a lot of resources. Our main curriculum growing up was things like she did have a math curriculum, but it was mostly arithmetic. And so we didn't really get into a lot of the higher level math. It was available, but we didn't have it growing up. And so, hold on. So, so that wasn't available. So anyways, so my little brother was homeschooled after first grade, and then kind of loosey-goosey on his school. He did some of the arithmetic type stuff, and my mom's coming over here. Maybe we'll get my mom to talk about.
Mom B stories, yes.
The Queen Mother.
So say hello to the Queen Mother.
Hey, Mom.
Hi. How are y'all doing?
Fabulous.
So I was telling him about don't say his name, but he's pretty private. But so I was telling him about how after first grade, what should we call him?
So he's Voldemort? Is that what you're getting at?
Voldemort, yeah. We'll call him
gosh.
He who must not be named. he who must not be named was pulled out. Was it the middle of first grade?
No, it was the end.
It was the end of first grade?
Yeah, it was just too ridiculous. He was one of those kids that he talks to learn, and he likes to fix things. He's kind of a hands-on learner. So, yeah, he was pulled out then. And then he went back in 8th grade because someone convinced him he didn't know anything. But by that time, he'd already taken apart and put back together numerous computers. And he was learning C++ and just all kinds of things way beyond. But
how did he learn that? Like the coding and stuff. How did he start learning that? Do you remember?
Oh, just curious.
I remember going to Barnes and Noble and getting books with them.
We got
I think-
C++ from Barnes and Noble and coding books and things he was interested in. But he pretty much figured out how to read them and study them. And yeah. And then in eighth grade, yeah, because the high school started at 8th grade. Because my son-in-law said, "You don't know nothing." So he went to school, went to high school, and he
went to his freshman year, right?
Yeah, his freshman year of high school. He went to an algebra class, and he was very frustrated because nobody was listening to the teacher, and people were copying off his papers and teaching him how to cheat and sneak out. And yeah, so his sophomore year, he decided to take college courses. So we got enrolled him in Texas Tech.
So it was through correspondence. And in those days, it wasn't online, it was through books. So I also did correspondence high school. I did all my high school on correspondence. So they would send you the textbooks. You would do the tests and send them in to a teacher. So anyways, he did that for his sophomore year to get through some more math classes, right?
Well, I don't remember. We got him like 3 courses, and he only finished one of them. The other 2 were boring and wasted our money. So he decided that he'd go back to school and not hang out with the losers he did before. So that was his junior year, and they accepted. Well, he didn't find this out till later. He submitted his transcripts and everything from Texas Tech. He may have completed 2 of those courses, actually.
I think he did, because he made it all through it the way him and his friend petitioned the high school.
Yeah, so then he went to the high school, and he was such a computer whiz. So I don't remember if it's freshman or junior. I think it was his freshman year. He was in a class for computers, and he made an app and gave it to all the class, so they would sit there and talk to each other while they were in class.
Right.
It was like a private discuss, or I don't know.
Oh my gosh, this is like really early 2000s, right?
Yeah.
That was yeah, because he's 6 years younger than me. So
then he got
before Facebook, for sure.
He would participate in hacker stuff a lot and do competitions.
Oh, I forget about that, like hackathon type stuff.
Yeah. So he hacked into, was it Facebook?
I forgot
Twitter?
about that. Yeah, I forgot about that.
So I got new names now. We got Trinity, we got her husband Neo, we got the Oracle, and now we have Morpheus, the brother. There we go.
So yeah. So listen, that was actually super funny because he linked Twitter and Facebook, and like so that you could post stuff onto Facebook from Twitter or something like that.
Anyway, he got a cease and desist letter.
Forgot about that. That was in high school, and it was like when this is what, like,
oh, it's way back.
It was, yeah, but it was very early.
So he also got he downloaded some weird virus, and my husband intervened before he sent that off.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we were like, no.
Oh my gosh.
But that was the hackathon stuff. And anyway, so when he got into his junior year, he was fixing all the teachers' computers and the networking and this and that.
And he worked for the school district too. Do you remember that? I forgot that he
he wasn't paid for it. He was just helping.
Oh yeah, he was paid for it. Yeah.
No, if it's anything like what I did, I didn't take PE, and I said was TA to the computer tech, and just went around and like plugged teachers' computers. About a third of the time, the problem with the teachers' computers wasn't plugged in. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. Crawling around the ceiling string Cat 5 cables in the 90s. Yeah.
So he went. So anyways, he was homeschooled from first grade. After first grade all the way through 8th grade, and with a pretty loosey-goosey type, he did some classes, but it wasn't he mostly like took apart computers and put them back together. And then his freshman year, he went to high school. Sophomore year, did Texas Tech. Junior year, went back to public high school. I think that's when, and then him and his friend petitioned for the calculus class. Was that senior year?
For his senior year, MIT did not accept. So his friends were the valedictorian and the salutatorian, and they were all wanted to get into MIT. And the math class or the calculus class that the school offered was not high enough for MIT to accept it. So the three of them got together and petitioned the school to do a higher level math class so they could apply to MIT. And the school said, okay. So it was pretty cool. And there were only 3 people in the class. So when it came time to graduate, they decided to hold him back because they would not accept his Texas Tech credit. And I was furious. But my son said, no, I'll handle it. And all the teachers that he had fixed their computers, because there was one of the teachers, he actually took a leave of absence. He had a stroke or something. So the last part of his senior year, he kind of, I don't know if you'd call it substitute or what, but he kind of helped with that teacher a lot. So I'm not sure if he was just an aide or what he did, but he was very integral in helping that guy. And so the teachers and a super cool counselor fixed it so he could walk with his class. So he was.
So anyways, then he moved on to college. And similar to Uncle Owl fashion, he was able to squeeze a 4-year degree into 5 years. Was it 5 years?
Yeah.
But he dual majored in physics and math, and with a minor in French, I think, because he
did internships
for NASA.
Yeah. And so he was really.
So the NASA one, he did was it JPL?
I don't know. He did one in California and one in Maryland. And then he decided that he didn't want to get his doctorate because they said you have to get a doctorate. And then the reason why I didn't want to get a doctorate is all those who had doctorates had to go and get grants, and then all the underlings did the work. And usually the grants were paid for by people who had an agenda.
Right.
And he was not going to do that. He did Google Mars when he was in California.
Oh yeah, that was in his undergrad thing. Yeah. I think that's part. Yeah, and then NASA paid for his master's, and then
no, he didn't get a master's,
but they paid for it.
Well, they were going to, but
well, he started, right?
He started.
He took like a year, and then that's when he decided that he didn't want to do the.
No, he didn't want to do that.
He didn't want to do that because of the agenda.
Yeah, the agenda was he was supposed to find. So the agenda was such that he couldn't go for it, and he didn't like begging for money, so he didn't get his doctorate. So, yeah. So,
anyways, that's the homeschool story that I have.
Well, he definitely beats me. I wasted 11 years to get 7 degrees. This guy's clearly smarter.
Yep, and mine was 3 times that. So yes, squeezing a 4-year degree into mine was 17 and a half.
Well, this is why you hold the keys to the library, man. You have too many books.
Just so. That was an amazing start to story time. Oh my gosh, it's so great to hear your mom hopping into the space. That was fun. It was really sweet.
We need a Queen Mother cameo every week. I hereby declare it as the Herald.
Queen Mother cameo. Only while she's snowbirding. Or I guess she'll have to make a Twitter account and she can be on spaces with us.
Oh, I don't mind. She can just hop onto your mic. I mean, that's fun too.
I have
figure this out.
I have to say I wouldn't wish that on her, but if she would want to.
Yeah. Like the social media thing is a bit of a maelstrom to toss someone into. I would stick with this until she's comfortable.
And next phase is Okay, so that was cool. In fact, let me try to pick up. Some of it was driven by getting almost taunted by peers that he wasn't learning as much as everyone else, and clearly was learning as much or more as everyone else, and then basically chose to sink his teeth into figuring these things out for himself. So the curriculum was supplied because there was interest and demand upon him.
Yes.
Well,
that's-
then do me a favor, and I'm going to try to be careful when I say this. Prior to that, was he clearly driven by a desire to read everything by, let's think of some authors, Charles Dickens, everything by, did you read all of the comics? Did you read The Far Side, Calvin and Hobbes? What was his thing?
Actually,
Calvin Hobbes and Far Side. Heck yeah.
You'd read what?
technical manuals.
The Star Trek technical man. I do know the entire specs of the USS Enterprise. D.
No, he's totally into learning all about computers, hardware. Then he'd go on.
Yeah, I was
He did
4, and I got Oregon Trail from a friend,
Phoenix,
so I installed it on my
Hey,
computer.
Phoenix, just
and,
for the sake of the
go ahead.
space, let's try not to overlap with Queen
No,
Mother
it was
speak.
stories back and forth. I thought it was stories. Go on.
What's that?
So he would buy we would buy him technical manuals. I was telling my mom earlier. I remember going to Barnes and Noble with him and getting like C++ manual, or that's what he was interested in. My other brother read all the Charles Dickens and all the classics, and he read
The encyclopedia.
the encyclopedias. Yeah, but no, this particular brother, he just read technical manuals and took computers apart and put them back together, and that was pretty much his schooling for after first grade all the way through 8th grade.
What I did do is I had him do calculators, which are you race against yourself learning addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and it goes up to geometry. And it's just time tests. And I told him when he finished that whole curriculum that I'd buy him a Nintendo or something. He got clear up to geometry and said, so what? So save me some money.
Okay, so then that means there was another child that was getting into other things. What you said that he was the one who read the encyclopedia. How interested in pick an aspect of his curriculum that he was interested in?
Bow-tied water bear is the one we're talking about, right? Like the one that did all the reading.
Yes.
You mean? So the thing he was interested in, he went a different direction. So he read a lot of books, like every book that he possibly could get his hands on, to the point that he read the encyclopedias, and he read all of every single classic that there is, he's read it. And then he read The Creature from Jekyll Island, which is about the Federal Reserve, and he read that in 5th grade because he thought it was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And he got through the first chapter and figured out that it wasn't, and decided he needed to read it anyway, so he just finished it, even though it's quite an adult book. It's very thick, and it's very thick. So, and then he went with my dad. So my dad, I'm not going to say what he does, but Bow-tied water bear is my brother. And so he went with my dad and basically was apprenticed by my dad from the age of 12.
May have been a little earlier than that, because he used to take him everywhere.
Yeah, my dad owns his own business, and he would take water bear everywhere.
And it's kind of an engineering field, so he learned a lot of practical field work. And then later on, he went to a technical school and learned
It's a very specified degree that's not offered.
It's a niche.
Very niche. And so he went to a technical school because that's all that was offered. And he's at the very, very tippy top of his field, along with my dad, because you have to test into it. And you have to have so many years of experience to be able to take the test. It's very, very niche.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, that's the direction he went.
What if you had tried to give them both the same curriculum?
One would have figured out he was dumb, he would have been destroyed. The other one I think he would have excelled, because the curriculums that were available at that time were very traditional.
I was telling them they didn't remember, like in the early 80s, you couldn't buy curriculum.
Oh, no, but I was just thinking if I would have sent one of them to school, he would have excelled.
Oh, yeah. Water Bear would have excelled for sure. If he would have
The other one, if I sent him to school, he would have been bullied. And
he was already in a bad spot in first grade, so they already had him pegged as a bad kid. And
yeah, they wanted to put him on medicine and all kinds of stuff.
ADHD medicine.
So I had a brother who he was quite brilliant, but he went through the government schools, but he really had a low self-esteem, and I think I just couldn't bear to see that happen to my son. I just felt like it was abuse. So.
Quick chat for the room. Did anyone have a hard time being labeled as a problem child, or in schools, or any of your kids?
Do I get 30 seconds out of the birdcage, Al?
Absolutely. You can have 45.
All right. Well, then real quick. So I was 4 years old. My friend gave me Oregon Trail. I don't know if any of you remember Oregon Trail. Oregon Trail is awesome. And so I decided to install my dad's computer. This was back when it was Windows 3.1 / DOS commands on an IBM 286 with a green screen in the late 80s or early 80s, mid 80s, something like 83 or 84, something like that. And I was 4.5, 5. So I accidentally deleted half of my dad's Microsoft Office suite to make room, because I was trying to figure out why it said I was out of memory. So I just kept hitting Del and typing in random that I found that were in the exe files. Then I realized it was 4 o'clock. My dad would be home by 7. He would be everything out of me because I deleted his freaking Office.
Hey,
so I found the disks to Office. And,
Phoenix,
go ahead.
Phoenix. Hey, this is
family friendly. And so I learned in 3 hours between 4 and 7 o'clock at 4.5 years old how to reinstall an operating system and Microsoft Office. Anyway, story time over.
Yep.
That's really cool.
I was the talker, especially in orchestra. I was just the talker. In science, where I really liked what we were doing, I was the talker. In classes where I actually didn't care that much about the class, I didn't talk as much. But man, did I get in trouble for talking.
I've never gotten in trouble for talking in my life.
I believe you.
You shouldn't.
So I talked nonstop through 3 years of Spanish, but in Spanish, so the teacher didn't care. My brother, who did end up skipping a grade, tapped his feet and hummed. And then after he'd skipped a grade, he slept through AP Calculus, and someone would nudge him to wake up and answer a question when he was called on. And I think he won an achievement award for the year.
Nicole, were you about to say something?
Hi guys.
Hey yo.
I really enjoy listening to you guys, so thank you for doing these spaces, but I've never been a part of one, so I'm sorry if my kids run up here and start screaming.
Don't apologize. We love
that.
Love kids.
You have always been here.
Well, I have 4, and my oldest, all my kids used to be in public school. Well, I should say the 2 oldest, because the other ones were too little. And I'm a COVID homeschooler, because right after COVID, I started homeschooling. But for lots of reasons. And my son was in a situation where he had a really terrible teacher that year, kind of put us in a corner. I already politically didn't align with the schools anyway, because I'm in Montgomery County, Maryland, which is the California on the East Coast. So he could be labeled what they call ADHD. I don't really care to label my children that way, but knowing that my brother had huge issues at school, I wanted him to have accommodations. So I went ahead and I was trying to get the school to, I was trying to talk to the teacher and say, should I look into this? And he completely ignored me and said, no. Well, my son was getting good grades, but this teacher, being as horrible as he was, I found out once I pulled him. I'll spare you from that long story of how bad that was. But once I pulled him, I figured out that he was actually getting good grades for not really being present and learning. He didn't really know how to learn. Nobody had sat and tried to figure out why it was that he was not able to. And again, I want to explain that I am not all about the ADHD labels. I have my own personal beliefs. I know that some kids do exhibit behaviors. I just don't think that it's like something that always needs to be treated with medicine, blah, blah, blah.
It's a
So,
mutant gene, FYI. But yeah, go ahead.
well, my son clearly needed some more attention while he was in school in terms of accommodations, like I said. So when I pulled him, he actually thrived. And the one-on-one obviously helped a lot. He was really good at math. He had no reading comprehension. When I pulled him, he was in third grade, or he'd finished his third grade year. Zero reading comprehension, had been making A's and B's in school. I don't know how, because again, no reading comprehension, lots of read aloud, lots of questioning. So it took me about a year to get him back on track. And then I'll spare you all the details, but now he's thriving at an all boys Catholic school. And I put him in just because him and I are very similar. And it was really hard for to find a perfect way. And while I had the other kids, he really wanted to be around boys, and this was a good fit. So he's there now, and he's doing really well. But if I had tried to put him into something like that right after public school, it never would have worked because they were not on board with helping me in any way. So the struggles with behavior, I think, are different for everyone. And I just thought I'd share.
Thank you. And we actually would love to hear more about that, the rest of the story, for sure, at some point, if not this evening, coming soon.
Yeah, I agree. Like, we don't need to cut that short. You can tell us more. But just one thought on that whole concept. The system crushes anyone who doesn't fit in. These are mutant genes. This is, well,
sure.
This is X.
There are so many layers to that story. I mean, the reasons that I pulled them out of school on top of the issues that he was having, and then all of them were different, right? My daughter had completely different issues. She was being ignored because she was actually above average on pretty much everything. And he was what I thought was, pretty typical boy and did okay, but really he was doing better on paper. So there's so many issues that I had with the public school system, and I am so against ever putting them back in to that system. But anyway,
Sure.
that could go on in many different directions, and maybe another space we'll have another story.
Yeah. Actually, let me follow up a question. What was your curriculum plan? What did you choose? What were they focused on? Anything for each of your kids?
What do you mean? Like how I decided to use what curriculum?
Yeah. Which one did you use? Did you notice that some favored a certain subject more than others? And how did you accommodate for that, adapt for that and stuff? Just curious.
Well, I had a meltdown first because I had no idea what I was doing. I am a public schooler through and through in terms of my upbringing, so I didn't know any different. And I'm sorry, but in the 90s, like, homeschoolers were the weird ones in our brains because that's what society told us, right? Like, so we all thought they were hippies, and that was very fringe. And I went to one of the biggest public county schools in like the nation, not the schools. I'm sorry. I was in one of the biggest counties and richest in Fairfax County, Virginia. And I was used to that. So my kids were just going to be public schoolers. But then, the more you see, the worse that became for us. And then with this teacher issue. So when I pulled them and I tried to find curriculum, it was more like, who do I know that homeschools? And we had moved to the area that we live in for the schools. And it was a big joke on us because that was 2019. And then we had two little ones, kindergartner and a first grader that year, or that coming year. So then they did all the COVID things. We did like COVID homeschool or whatever, what we called fake school in this house, and went through all of that. But when I pulled them and I knew one homeschooling mom, she helped me and helped me to navigate my way through finding curriculum. I mean, I use a bunch of different things. Catholic Heritage curriculum. I actually stuck with the school math just because my kids knew that and it would be familiar, and I didn't want to take that from them all of a sudden. I kind of knew it because I had to teach them at home anyway. Really, the school wasn't doing their job. But yeah, a lot of different, I did a lot of different stuff, but she helped me. My friend, I basically did what she was doing because I trusted her. And then from there, I kind of found my own way. And now I do a whole lot of different things with them. And it all depends on like what they like and what they don't like, what's working, when they're bored, when they're not bored. I have to switch it up a lot of times day to day with every subject.
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you.
Does that answer your question? I don't know.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
No. I think we need to hear 5 more minutes. I don't think I quite get it yet.
That actually may be fine. But we're telling some stories. There's going to be a point at the end, and I don't mind telling everybody what the point at the end is going to be, which is you're going to find out that everyone's story is completely different. And that's why the curriculum story as a perfectly mapped out structure is nonsense. So anyway, we'll keep going. There are some more stories out here, I bet. But thank you so much for sharing that. That was awesome.
So just in the last few days, my eighth grader has dominated her math curriculum to the point that, whenever there's something that's not right, she's like, are you sure that the key is correct? And she's not wrong. Like the key's not always correct. We have to go back and check, but I always make her rework and say, okay, just, make sure you understand the process, because that's the part that's going to hang you up later. But yeah, we don't have a curriculum for anything, partly because of things like that. But also because different aspects of things work for us.
So do you have several, or a few favorites?
Yeah, we have math workbooks, and I kind of hate math workbooks, but at the same time, when there is a thing that somebody needs to spend time on and the opportunity to kind of work through it a couple of times to get the motion down, for lack of a better term, that does help. I think some
Sure.
repetition can be helpful.
Oh, repetition in math is just about necessary. I mean, we shouldn't denigrate that point, but it's we're talking about someone who's definitely trying to learn the math for themselves, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, the repetition is egregious. Even
Yeah.
in the best workbooks I found, the repetition is egregious, and they look at me like, come on, really? Do I? And it's like, no, you don't. No, you don't have to sit there and do that 1,000 times. Because my oldest two were in public school and had that experience. My oldest was put in a group by herself because she worked faster than anybody else.
Yeah.
And when she was done, the teacher would give her more, and then didn't understand why she spent her time organizing the crayons in the bin instead, because, who doesn't want to sit and do, rote math activities in the first grade over and over and over again?
I mean, let me clarify my statement just a little bit, just so I say it to make it clear. My example that I have for myself is I just about didn't understand differential equations until I did them over and over again. It's like I did them over and over again, and I did them correctly. And it wasn't until I was like, I did the same problem over and over again, and finally, like the 10th time I did it, it clicked why it was working. And that's what I mean by repetition being a good thing. I certainly do not mean what you just said, which is repetition for the sake of repetition, or time filler repetition when someone's already completed the work. Yeah, that is exactly what I would not suggest or have meant in that case.
Right. I think a lot of even the workbooks that I can get have some of that, because I think people still think there's still plenty of people who think they have to do school at home the way it's done in
right
public school building. And maybe they do want the busy work. I think there's moments where it's like, okay, if you guys could all just get out your math books and spend 15 minutes on that while I change a smaller child, or, something like that.
I would actually just give them what do you want to call it? Give them some serious hard labor for 10 minutes. I'm gonna change our your sister, and you guys are going to go plant a new garden in the back. Yay, go.
That happens too.
Good.
Vacuum your room while I change your sister. Things like that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's ping this out for more. We're going to tell some stories. I'm about ready to tell mine. Stories of curriculum choices, you or your children, when they got serious about certain ideas, certain concepts or disciplines that they got really into. Anyone have anything they'd like to add? We'd love to hear from anyone. We're telling stories this evening. Oh, I see. I'm being a bad co-host. A couple people have requested. Hold on.
I'm going to start inviting people if you don't talk.
Mm-hmm.
I do. Okay. So I have a sixth grader who is very mechanical and asks the most amazing, detailed questions that I can't answer. usually when I'm driving, and I may have to. I'm one of those that has to turn the radio down so I can find the street address. So I definitely can't answer them while I'm driving. But YouTube has been his curriculum because he can find stuff about Edison motors and car design and mechanical stuff and things that isn't a curriculum, but he can find it that way.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And I actually do consider engine taking apart engines or mechanical machinery that you take apart and put back together as a necessary form of curriculum for anyone who is interested in that kind of thing, that way of thinking, even actually really for someone who isn't. But no, that's a perfect example, is using the free YouTubes for like taking apart some piece of machinery, a computer, a car engine, a two-stroke engine, and then putting it back together. No, that is amazing. It's a perfect part of important curriculum. Good story.
15 seconds before we move off the other topics.
Yes,
on
sir.
the concept of ADD or ADHD or whatever the heck this DSM nonsense calls it. The point is that if you want to be an operator, look, I mean, at this point, I don't even see the code. I just see blonde, brunette, redhead, whatever. The point being, though, if you want to try to read the code, you have to watch 10 screens. You have to see all the data streams. You have to actually adapt to the speed of information. It's the fourth age of mankind. This is not a disease. This is an evolution. This is a mutant gene. This is the mind incorporating the data stream. Like,
I could see that. I mean, I think especially in the case of young boys in general, they just shouldn't have been in a box strapped to a desk doing worksheets anyway.
Well, they never were for 295,000 years.
Thank you.
That, like,
well said.
Yeah,
and so that's sort of it's a symptom of them not being in the right kind of environment more than it being anything else. But I still I appreciate what you just said. I mean,
well, here's the thing, right? Everyone talks about like homeschool versus traditional education. What they forget is this quote unquote traditional education is actually the experiment. It's been around for like 40, 50 years. This is the experiment.
That's
not
true.
Traditional
and
education.
actually, I would even sort of add this basic point, which is traditional education is homeschooling. This thing we're doing is
that's
definitely
exactly
an
my
experiment.
point. Yes, exactly. And the data demonstrates quite convincingly that it has failed miserably.
Yeah, exactly. It's failing miserably. Well said. Yes. Other stories. Dins.
I have some fun story. Yeah.
Please
I've
do.
been homeschooling since my kids were born, and we're entering a weird stage because I think my daughter is planning to enter high school next year for the first time. So that will be sort of funny. But I have I only have two kids, but I have like so far end of the spectrum as far as like how you could possibly teach kids. So from birth, my daughter was incredibly well read, if that makes sense. Like she would be like 3 months old and like could sit through you reading her books, like staring, looking at them. And she was reading this is like not a brag. It's just like to explain the situation. She was like reading books and words at 12 months, books at 2 and whatever. So that was like an experience where we never had to do anything, but the social side of stuff was so anxious that we decided to homeschool because we're like, we don't need to put her in school to, be anxious all day long. And then had my son who was like the exact opposite. He was like the never stop moving active one. And so, but like could never sit still to even look at a book. And so he had the opposite of where my daughter was like completely hyperlexic. He was completely dyslexic. And so this style of trying to for her, anything she wanted to learn, we would just go to the library, take out 50 books, and that was the end of that. And then for him, it was like the complete opposite, where anything we tried to do to teach him the letters and teach him the words, he literally didn't even recognize that words existed for so long. So that was an interesting experience for us, and just like made us go through the entire spectrum of every type of, teaching to every type of learning to whatever to try to get them through their own stuff. So it's been a path.
I was just in a space earlier today with Hitch Slap. He's a fellow from Australia. He's super with it, a really cool guy. And he was talking about how everyone who has one child thinks that their child was the result of their parenting, and everyone who has two children realizes that it has very little to do with your parenting, because you have two. When you have two, there's no way that they did the same things no matter what you did. And it's just an important point. And I love you saying this having complete opposites for your two children. And so my follow-up question to you is, what did you do for curriculum? Like, how did you arrange curriculum? What did you like? What did you not like? Any of that?
Yeah, so we tried, we were very unschooling for a long time. So my thought process, especially for my daughter, it was just anything she wanted to learn, she would read. So we would just go to the library, anything she wanted to learn about, tons of museums, outings. We had homeschool meetups where we'd do different stuff. So we didn't do any curriculum at any young age. And then I tried to just do math. I was like, at some point, you guys need to learn, to write, and you need to learn math. So I would try for so long to do math, and it was very frustrating because I'm actually really good at math. And my daughter, who loves to read, hates math. I don't even think she's particularly bad at it. I just think she really hates it. And so that, was like tons of time of me trying to get them to do problem sets. It's like, well, you need to learn your addition and multiplication tables and stuff like that. And nothing would stick ever. So that didn't work out so well. Just finally this year, I mean, they knew their basic stuff, but finally I started to use like more external stuff. And in June, I finally started with them with the, from Queen Bee, she recommended the Ron Paul curriculum.
Oh,
so I started to do that for math for them. And then—
Do you mind if I ask what age?
Oh, she's 13. So
okay. So didn't move significantly past basic numeracy until 12, 13? Oh, did we lose you, Dins?
I've been having some connection issues tonight too. I don't know if there's something up with X.
I kind of am too. I just hear it like coming off and on. Dins, if you can speak, keep trying.
Bark twice if you're in Milwaukee.
Caw twice if you're a bird brain.
No, my whole family calls me a bird brain because I have maybe 1,800 species of birds in my head and their calls and everything, and I'm always thinking about them. And then we're just walking somewhere, and I'm like, "Oh, that's a tikka-kappa," and everyone's like, "Why are you here? What's wrong with you?"
I will never believe that.
We actually have the Merlin app, and we've been trying to figure out what kind of birds are around here.
I love the Merlin app.
Do you?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, we're super into that.
Dins, if you manage to back up here, we will absolutely bring you back up. Must just be having some trouble. We hope to hear more from you more. In the meantime, was anyone else that wanted to hop in with some stories or ideas?
Please, somebody save them for more of my voice.
I'm back. I have a time limit on Twitter, and it timed me out.
Oh, what a good mom.
Whoops.
That's incredible. It's a new one. All right. Well, since you're on a timer, you better go.
I forget what I was saying. We only started the curriculum. I think I was saying that we did, Canadian Curriculum puts out workbooks that covers like everything that they learn in the public schools, basically, to an extent. So we did those for a bunch of years. And then we just started with the grades 7 math for my daughter. And we're going to do grade 7 and 8 before she has to do any math in high school next year. And then I'm just like teaching it alongside that. So we're doing that together.
So how extensive was the like basic numeracy up until 12 or 13? Was it lots of worksheets every week? Was it lots of stuff every week, or was it pretty minimal? What was your experience?
It was like we kind of run in cycles where like we'll be really good for 2 or 3 weeks and then forget for 2 or 3 weeks, like when life gets in the way, because we were not like committed to a schedule. So it was always come back to it, but never like, it wasn't like hours a day. It was maybe like, okay, get an hour done in an entire week and I'll be happy and we'll go from there.
Yeah, you did say something about unschooling.
Yeah, we would do it and like we would do it in, in baking and this and that, and every, randomly when we decided we wanted to like learn about something. So like the understanding of like how numbers work and addition and subtraction was there, but it's like getting into the complex stuff that I thought that they would have a bit of a better understanding just from the natural way we run stuff than they did. So like everything with like money and stuff like that, they were pretty good because we would just discuss everything so much. So we were really into that. Like car rides were for discussing stuff and that sort of way. And but sort of like when you get into algebra and like realizing that they understand what addition is and what subtraction is, but that they don't always understand, the inverse relationship of them or how they're opposite from each other, or like they'll understand how to divide a number. But when you tell them like, how to keep an equation equal, like stuff like that, all of a sudden you realize there's a gap in like the understanding of numbers versus just the straight up manipulating of them.
Did you give them timeouts and ground them when they didn't do their, quadratic algebra properly?
Oh God, no. Yes and no. So like we have other, we have like one of the reasons we chose to homeschool is just because we had so many other challenges that we were trying to figure out at the time. So the actual schooling part of it has never become an issue up until this past year when it was like, now it's much more clear. Like my daughter is very adamant that she wants to go to school, and I'm very adamant that if she wants to, she can't just go and not be prepared to do the schooling part well, because there's going to be other challenges with starting it, and I don't want the schooling to be the challenge.
I mean, Your Majesty, could you follow up with what I was just about to say, or should I go for it?
I don't know what you
Then
were
you
just
say
about
what
to
you would say right now.
Okay. So I think I wouldn't worry too much about so the way that you do homeschooling is very similar to the way that I do homeschooling. And the way that my brother kind of jumped into regular school, um, I I don't know if I would worry too much about it. That's mostly what I was thinking. I understand where you're coming from because my kids, I do like your story sounds very similar to exactly how I do with my kids, and I see the gaps in their learning. But I really think that she'll probably catch up to that really quick. That's what I was
Yeah,
thinking.
for the most part, I'm not like too concerned with any other subject. Like I was reviewing sort of what she would need. And so like the way that we're schooling right now for my daughter, she's studying for a Bible contest. So that's like, to me, that's like, you only have to do that and math right now. And then her writing, because she likes to write and she's an excellent writer. So I don't do anything else. Like I don't care about history or geography or any of those other things. Cause to me, it's like, she'll just pick that up. But what I like, the bigger issue for us is the structural issue of she's used to doing her own thing all day. She's not used to like a strict schedule. She's actually just not used to like boring teachers. So like one of her complaints about the math is that the teacher's a little bit boring. And I'm like, that's going to be something you encounter and just like have to deal with. So it's less about like the knowledge specific stuff. Like for math, it's so that she doesn't struggle, because I don't want her to send her to school to then spend 3 hours crying about homework or anything like that. Like I want it to be easy for her, but I also want her to know this is a schedule. These are the things you're going to encounter. So if you're serious about it, you have to be prepared for a few of these things.
Oh, I love that. And really, that wasn't the part that I was going to speak directly to, because, I mean, I don't know if you knew this, but I totally trust you. You should do whatever you feel there. I mean, I think that's right. And what I was going to point out was something kind of more interesting and I'm sorry, really not interesting, more funny, which is most kids to like 10, 11, 12, 13 are just not going to jam on math. Like that's just not going to happen. Like they're going to get basic numeracy from like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 8, 9, 10. They're gonna want to jam on a bunch of other things. That's a Piagetian, an Erikson, a childhood development thing, which is they don't have the intellectual capacity to understand abstract mathematics yet, and so they very likely won't until they get to 12 or 13, which is what I wanted to just sort of highlight was that not being, well, now necessarily you have this particular concern, which I think your concern is correct. What I was making the case of is until then, that's simply not a major concern. And it is just like what you described. I believe if I heard you correct, it was like hour a week kind of stuff of how much numeracy, how much mathematics was needed to move along in a decent way when you're 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then you get to 11, 12, 13. They have capacity for concrete operational thought. They can think more abstractly. They're able to do things like jam on math. I would definitely say if they want to, that obviously matters. But also if you've dangled a carrot because they said they want to do something a certain way, and you're saying, okay, well then you have to deal with this math. I actually love that. I've got no problem with you making that choice. That sounds like a really good motivation.
You triple comboed with 3 math concept advanced equations, and then you don't even explain them. You're worse than I am. Explain those.
Never.
Okay, so one thing that I was thinking of that you while you were talking, Uncle Owl, is I think Dins, that maybe like her going to school right now is her her big thing. Like, so Uncle Owl in his Socratic approach to homeschooling or to schooling or in general, it seems like kids have at that age, they have a need to have one big thing that they just go all in for. And it seems like I know something about your daughter too, but she has a couple big things, but that's like one of her big things that I don't know if I'd worry too much about the school too. I mean, I do agree with Uncle Owl with what he said. I'm not trying to say I don't. But I think this is her big thing, and she's going to figure out all the little things to make herself fit into the big thing and to learn all about the big thing. And her big thing is going to school, as opposed to, I have a daughter that her big thing is music, and so she's going all in on playing the bass, and she picked up the guitar, and now she's learning to read music, and so that's her big thing, and she's going with all the little, like, figuring out all the little things that go with that, and she's got a couple big things as well. Anyways, it excited me to think about that's her big thing, so she's going to be willing to do the math, hopefully, because it's not, she doesn't want to do the math necessarily, but if it supports her goal, which is to go to school and to fit in and to have fun and, make the best of it. And then, it just excited me when I was thinking about it.
It's definitely her big thing. And I'm definitely using it as the carrot for absolutely everything that I'm trying to get her to do right now, which I don't know if it's good or bad, but whatever. That's how it's being used. I'm like, okay,
it's going to be both good and bad, but awesome. I love that.
Exactly.
Well, if we're talking about math, like 2 quick thoughts and then a quick story in 30 seconds. First of all, 0 is not a number. You cannot add with it. You cannot subtract with it. If you multiply by it, you get nothing. If you divide by it, you crash. Okay, 0 is not a number. Secondly, negative numbers are not numbers. They're imaginary. They are shorthand of saying subtraction of numbers. Those are 2 concepts about math. Third is the story. I taught a first grader how to do addition, multiplication, division, and subtraction. Then she went to school and got a C. She came back and she was like, what the hell? And I was like, look, all our answers were right. I'm like, I went to the teacher. I was like, what? She's like, oh, well, she didn't draw the blocks. At that point, I threw the paper at them and took her out of school and homeschooled her.
Yeah, that's
Something
similar
like that.
to what happened with my brother. He would do something similar and then he would get in a lot of trouble for it. But I think that one of the things that it sort of made me realize when you're saying about like what developmental stage they're each at, I think that one of the biggest things that homeschooling, this was like really apparent during COVID for me, was that I was never getting like outside feedback about like if my kids were doing okay. So like you go through all the frustrations at home, you go through everything that you're, going through, whatever things, and then you don't get a lot of outside feedback. And I remember one time when my kids were really little, maybe they were like 4 and 6 or something very cute, 5 and 7. And we went to like a restaurant and it was a buffet. So I got them their food first and sat them at the table. And then I went to go get their own. And when I went to go get my own food, these other people were telling me, oh my God, your kids are so cute. They're so well behaved. They're sitting so nicely and chatting with each other at the table. It's so sweet. And then with COVID, like when that hit, I stopped getting enough outside reference. Canada was really bad. We didn't have a lot of stuff open. And I stopped getting any outside reference of whether or not anything that we were doing was fine. But it also speaks to the math because I personally remember learning algebraic expressions when I was in grade 1 with my mother. And so to me, in my head, it's like, this isn't something that should be like a problem, like simple ones like y equals x plus 6. What's x? Like, you know what I mean? Like 3, that kind of stuff. And so in my head, it was like, well, they're 12, 13. Like this should be an easy enough concept for me to teach. So I think that sometimes I lack the outside perspective. I always say it with my kids too. Like my daughter is 5'10", 5'11" almost. And so I always joked when I see other kids now who are 6 or 7, like I can't tell how old kids are anymore because I have no perspective because my kids were so much taller that I can't even judge what like a child looks like. So I think that sometimes it's a perspective issue also. And I have to keep that in mind.
Y equals x plus 6? How would you solve
I didn't
that?
mean that. I meant like y equals x plus, like,
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah. How about that? I would say the thing that sticks out is now I'm going to ask you about what if you'd had a rigid curriculum right now that was making your daughter or your son do a specific thing? What would that be? And what I mean is, what do you think their thing that they're super interested in right now is?
My daughter is very interested in writing right now. She's very into the creative writing. So I don't have a rigid curriculum on it, but I do have that she has to submit once in a while for me to read, because a lot of the stuff, she's at that age where it's like a little bit, embarrassing for her to let her mother read it. So the only thing that I do make sure is, like, they have some creative writing competitions and stuff like that. She entered one a couple of years ago. Her story got published in it. And so there's like little things like that will sort of like, I will encourage that she has to write stuff that I could read, that so that I can work with her on the editing and stuff like that. I don't really have to do much for it because she pretty much will write for hours a day anyways. But I do look to have feedback to make sure that, we joke about her use of commas and stuff like that. So.
And is the daughter the older one or the younger one?
The older one.
Okay. You have a son. It was daughter, son?
Yeah, I have an older daughter and younger son.
What's he up to?
He doesn't have it's the opposite. He doesn't have any like big interests or passions. So I have to like force do stuff with him in order to get what I need out of him. It's like you have your basic things that you have to be able to do. So he was the one who had the huge problem with the reading. So we've spent the last year and a half to 2 years, like only like, that's our main focus. Anything else is not really, it can go to the wayside. Now, like we do other stuff too that he's interested in. And we try to like put in, he's interested in videos, or he's been like pretty into like doing stuff with my dad in the country. So like I'll sort of encourage that, like anything that he wants to try. He likes the stuff with guns. We tried to tell him like, listen, you could go get your personal arms license if you get the reading really down and whatever.
I love that.
So we try to do some stuff like that. But for him, he's sort of just he's like very in the moment for anything. So I don't think he cares yet. But so for him, I have to like.
He might just be just within a year or two of like the what we call the geek out stage, where there's something that really sticks out and he just becomes hyper focused on it.
Yeah.
But I love your dangling of the carrots. I think that's right. Yeah. I'm good with that.
The cries, the carrots, the rabbits.
Well, what I tell my kids is like, even with things that they're nervous or whatever, I was like, listen, like if there's a time that you're not ready yet for something, but like I know you're ready, like I'll just be the strength for you. Like I'll choose that you should do it or choose whatever, but it's not because I'm forcing you. It's because like I feel like that's what you need to overcome, that little hump to be not scared.
Wow. I dig that so much. Listen, we got at least a couple other people up here that my guess is you've got some stories and we want to hear them. Just to point it out for everyone's time, we usually stop at 20:30. That's 8:30 Eastern. Just we like to not go for hours because we know we all have other things that we need to take care of. But if anyone's just itching to mention a story or ask a question, please do not hesitate. Just request to speak. We'll glad to get you up here.
Unless it's interesting, and then we'll randomly end up here for 3 hours. But yeah, sure.
I love the way you think, but we probably can't do that to everybody with kids.
I don't know. This is actually experience. Like we've done this before, but anyway.
Can I ask that you guys maybe talk a little bit about your writing class or whatever you all do for writing? Because that's one thing I've struggled with. I've changed a few curriculums. Now my daughter's in an outsourced class with a local church that does some homeschool classes with IEW writing. But I'm interested because it's just something that's so subjective. And I got to the point where I was like, I don't know if I'm doing enough. I don't know if I'm doing too much. So thank you.
I can if anybody else doesn't want to step up and say something.
You're always first, Your Majesty. Hit it.
Okay.
No one can ever deny.
So my oldest, she likes to draw. She doesn't necessarily like to write, and my younger three all like to write. So it was kind of to the point my youngest actually wants to be an author. So they've all written to some degree except for my oldest, and so I was a little bit panicked about her, but she decided that she wanted to take a writing class her freshman year at the local co-op. No, I take that back. It was her sophomore year at the local co-op. Anyway, she took a writing class and they made her write papers. And I told her, I'm paying a lot of money for this out of pocket, so do it and do it well. So I got to read her papers and she wrote really well. So, and she's not a huge reader. I don't give labels, so she hasn't been officially diagnosed or anything, but somebody A teacher that did her evaluation one time told me that she thinks she's probably mildly dyslexic. So she doesn't do a lot of reading and she doesn't do a lot of writing. She's very much like engineering brain and likes to figure things out with her hands. And so I was a little nervous about her writing, and turns out she's totally fine, and she passed the class with an A actually. And so I'm just not worried about anything. So what I do for writing is ever since they were little, I've given them paper and pens, and just all the kinds of paper I could find, all the colors, kinds of marking devices, I should say, because it wasn't just pencils or pens, it was everything that I could possibly find. And it's turned into drawing and writing and making books. My son is currently doing character development, he said, because he wants to make a book that's I don't know, there's some kind of amalgamation between like a live book and what do you call it, video game, and I don't even know. Anyways, he's doing character development for that, and he's not as good at drawing as his sisters are, but he's very good at stories and writing, and so he's more of my writer. My other girls, they write really well, and I've always required them to do just like if they study something, I went through elementary and middle school. It was write 2 paragraphs about that, write 3 paragraphs about that, and just to do like basic sentence structure, and so they know what a paragraph is, and they know how to how to do that, just basic stuff. And so I started with the end of the story, and then went to the beginning and got back to the end. And I hope you understood what I said. But
As all good stories are told, they are circles like a wheel of
it
fire.
was definitely a circle.
Well,
But
look, here's the thing. The past is a ghost. The future is vision. You only exist in the now. Worry not, try not, do or do not.
so, Nicole, did you understand what?
Yeah, I did. And actually, it makes sense because when I think about what the things that I've done with my children, I kind of bounce all over the place because I forget that, we did journal writing when I got really upset with Write Shop, or, it was just too teacher heavy. So we ended up doing one year just some journaling about the weekend, give me 2 paragraphs for the older ones. And then my little ones, my daughter, who's now in 2nd grade, last year was writing like a sentence and then drawing a picture. But I found something that works for her with drawing. So, because I'm a new homeschooler, it's hard for me to trust myself and feel like I'm doing enough, or am I not doing enough? Or like, I've got all these friends, we live in the DMV area, which is very, very, we just have a lot of very, I don't know how to explain it, go-getters, I guess, as homeschooling parents here around, and they really do push a lot of things, and rigorous, like very systematic curriculums that they use for every subject, and they push and push. So I don't, that's not really my style at all. And I just want my kids to be smart, well-rounded children, and I think I'm doing that, but sometimes you just need a reminder that everybody kind of has to find their way.
Yep.
So first of all, regarding journaling, that's a classic homeschooler technique, and it's proven. So if you're having them just do like some basic journaling, they're like I was saying earlier, in the 80s and 90s, there were no curriculums available. So a lot of the homeschoolers would do journaling is actually like copywriting or copy work, and journaling are 2 of the main ways that they taught writing in the, actually, I say 80s and 90s, but that actually went back to the founding fathers. The founding fathers did copy work and journaling. So, the both of those are proven methods. You don't need anything for that. That's so easy. So first of all. Second of all, to address like all homeschoolers, whether they act like they have it all together or they don't, none of us feels confident. Even like I grew up homeschooled, and so, but even still, I'm like, oh my gosh, am I totally ruining my kids? And fortunately, my family has a good track record, so I know I'm not. But I just encourage you, you are doing what's right for your kids. And my mom had to fight through a lot of the people who had it all together, and some of them can be really pushy. They're like, oh, you should really do it like this. We have our schoolroom set up and a chalkboard, and I teach them, or we go through this curriculum for math and that curriculum for history and this curriculum for science. And my mom had to fight through a lot of that with us because she had people that were trying to shove that down her throat, to be honest. And don't worry about those people. Stay away from them, actually. What you're doing is empathetic. It's way more valuable to your kids, and they're going to retain a lot more of it.
Yep. I'm going to just add one. So if you wanted to follow up with what she was just describing, writing from your own thoughts, from the creative machine, the sense-making apparatus you have from within, and basically what gets put out about that specifically, probably you don't need to worry about whether or not how correct it is. One of the things you want to do is journal and keep track of things that are happening to you and things that you think. And just like you said, if there's something that they learned or something that they went through or something that they understand, to get them to, depending on the age, write 5 sentences about that, write 2 paragraphs, 3 paragraphs, whatever. That's perfect. There were 2 things I would add. So the first one was copying others' work. So even at this age, there may be a poet, a writer, a book, a something that they like the way it sounds. They like the way someone writes something. They read something and it really touches them. Tell them to rewrite it. So write it with their own hand, someone else's really great words. That's what Queen Bee was talking about. It called copy work, where you would grab something really meaningful to you. It could be the Star Spangled Banner. It could be the preamble to the Constitution. It could be
1,500 years of the Bible.
It could be verses of the Bible. It could be lyrics to a Beatles song. It really doesn't matter. But that's an important thing to do. So journaling and copying. And then the third one is, anyone got any pen pals out there? Write letters to people?
Yes, they do all the time.
Good. So that's a winning strategy. If you do those 3 things, the fundamental concerns of writing are pretty much covered in those 3. Now, I don't mean at the post-secondary or the academic level later, but for sure, when we're talking about kids before age 12, any combination of those 3 things is going to be fine. We're all going to be fine.
I just want to add that several years ago, one of my friends who homeschooled sent her son to high school when he needed to go. And she somehow got samples of all the high school kids writing. And she announced to the homeschool community here, she's like, I promise every single one of you is doing fine. They don't know how to write in school either. So
copy work. So think about it, y'all. For 85% of the last, say, 1,700 years the Bible has been in existence, it was hand copied by monks. The Gutenberg press is pretty new, all things considered.
Yeah, actually, the king of Israel was required to have a copy of Moses in his own hand. I don't know if y'all knew that. Okay, perfect. I think that's right. I was going to say, if you're talking about a little bit older kids, I have a personal favorite. It's the Norton Reader. The Norton Reader is one of my favorite breaking down language, linguistics, and writing. That's just a personal pet favorite. But I would say, if we're talking about the age that it seems like a lot of the kids we're chatting about right now, anywhere between 4 and 12, maybe 4 and 15, actually. Yeah, copy work's good. Journaling, so good. John Adams talked about his sons. He said, make sure that they're keeping a steady journal. He said, if you don't keep a journal, then your life is like birds floating through the air, leaving no trace. So you want to make sure you're writing down the things that happen in life. Unbelievably valuable to do
that was insane. Say that again.
He said, if you don't keep a journal or a diary, then your life is like a flock of birds traveling through the air, leaving no trace. Yeah, so it's super important to do that. And just like Queen Bee, Her Majesty mentioned, that's a fundamental thing that the both founding fathers and the families at that time were interested in. They did a lot of copy work. They kept journals, and they wrote letters. And they wrote letters to each other. They wrote letters to their family. They wrote letters to their friends. And so doing any amount of those things with your kids is so very good. That pretty much covers any concern with writing, I'd say.
I agree. And it's funny that you bring up John Adams, because John Quincy Adams was actually homeschooled by Abigail, and he was a diplomat to France, and by the time he was
Russia
12, I
and
think.
12.
Russia,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
He was with his father when his father was a minister to a diplomat to France, and then he actually left his father in France to go with the diplomat to Russia, and was basically an apprentice under him for the next 5, 6, 7 years. Crazy, right? The another point, I just lost it. If I lost it, then that's fine. We can just move on. Anyone else have any final closing questions or ideas or stories? A couple other people, you got some mics. We would love to just hear you and say hi.
I don't think I've heard
Hey,
from
I
a
just
few
want to
people
say
yet.
hi. I'm listening into you guys. Queen Bee knows I want to eventually do this, but whew, it's taking that step. I do have one at home, and I have two in public, and here we are with the flu from being in public school, and she literally came home. She's 5, and she came home, and she's been asleep since she got home. It was her first day back, and I feel horrible for her because I know how strenuous her day was. Had she been at home, she would have probably been less stressed out. You know what I mean? So I'm just listening. I'm taking notes, and just invite me to these
For
more
sure,
often.
KSJ. We're so glad you're here.
Every Wednesday.
Poke,
I'll send you the link every time, though.
Poke, I'm so glad
Awesome,
you're so
awesome.
polite with your hand up, but you can just hop in, bud, whenever you're ready.
Right on. So I've taught college, and I could say without any fear of contradiction that the homeschooling kids that I taught in college were always the best students in the class, save one class of student, and the only other class of student that was better or equal to the homeschool student in college was the adult student that actually was trying to make something happen in their lives. So if I were to give homeschoolers any advice when it comes to the type of homeschooler that will go to college, which isn't necessarily the case because college is not as necessary as it used to be, it is this. Make sure that when they go to college, that they understand that college is a choice on their part, not their parents. They are choosing to go to college, and they are choosing to invest themselves into an education. I know that sounds silly, but
Just because something is a cliche doesn't mean it's not true.
True. And the thing is that if they were homeschooled by someone who has a fully functioning frontal lobe, they'll end up being this way anyway. So there's not a whole lot of point in me saying this, but your goal is to make them someone who wants to take from the world that's in front of them and make the most of it. Right. That's the goal.
Yes. Love that. So well said, Pogue.
I want to hear more. I like this guy.
Pogue Mahone, we do love him. We will hear more.
Are y'all closing the space down?
Probably. Yeah, for the sake of time. We don't want to go too far over. But we do definitely want to give anyone opportunity to give another story or ask a quick question and any closing thoughts, and then we'll go to Her Majesty and see when she's ready to close it down.
The last thing that I will say is that if you can homeschool your kids, if it is in any way something that you want to do, it's worth it. Do it. It's worth it. Put the time into it. I guarantee you will enjoy the person that you build through homeschooling more than than the alternative. I promise you. Do it.
Do it. Oh wait, sorry, that was Darth Sidious.
My sense is exactly right. The same. The idea that there's something to be gained from our participation in our children's lives and their growth through those years, and I do not want this to come across as a cheap sounding criticism, because it's not. It's very difficult for people to see the right put together what it takes to homeschool their children if they're not currently, but to offload that onto others is a huge loss. It is a huge winning opportunity to put that burden onto your own shoulders, and the experience and the relationship and the quality and the experience and the result and outcome of your family and children and yourself that comes from homeschooling your children. I don't think anyone would not recognize the huge benefit. I don't remember what the number is, but wasn't it 16,000 hours? Is that what it was? 16,000 hours back with your kids that you get if you choose to not have them in school?
I don't remember it. Jonathan was talking about, and we could go on about, he's the one that knows the number, but we could go on about that. There's so many benefits to homeschooling. But I do want to point out that the smart kids kind of thing, that, you want your kids to be top level, super smart, blah, blah, blah. It's not necessarily just the people that have the best curriculum. It's actually, in my experience,
It's not.
in my experience, it's not the people who have the best curriculum. It's the people who have their ear attuned to their kids and can facilitate their learning on what they're specifically interested in. And so it's vastly different for each kid. I have 4 kids, and it's vastly different for each one of them. So it's not the people that have the perfect curriculum for all situations. It's the people that are adaptable and are learning about what their kids want to learn about, and just shoveling stuff in front of their kid that they're interested in as quickly as possible, basically.
The only thing I would add to that was very well said. Thank you. Is when I was teaching, I thought of it as I was training future colleagues, right? I think when it comes to a parent teaching a child, you are, maybe this is cheesy, but you are training a future friend. You are training someone to be a future you, right? And we don't homeschool. My family doesn't homeschool. It's not because we think of any less of homeschooling. It's just that's the reality that we live with. But I cannot stress enough the value of homeschooling from my experience, in the sense that I have family members that do homeschool. And because they homeschooled, their children they were given the freedom to be the kind of person, quite frankly, that they would not have been had they been in a different environment.
The federal penitentiary system?
I won't say that. Because they were given that freedom and were allowed to grow in that way, those children that I'm thinking of in my family are special in a way that is profound. And if you have that drive in you, it is a valuable thing. It is a precious thing. And if you don't, that's fine. That's fine. You can make good things happen as well. But homeschooling is a precious thing if you have the ability to do it, if you have the drive to do it. The outcome of which is something that, if, just like what Botad was saying, if you keep your ear to the ground and you listen to what's going on with your kids and you adapt to what's going on, you are part of a chaotic process that produces something that could not happen in a public schooling environment. That's the most precious thing about homeschooling, is that it produces something that could not happen otherwise. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, perfect. There's this account out here. Her name is Mega Verma. She's really smart. She's an interesting person. She just said today, she said, if I could go back and redo it again, I would just pick one thing that I really wanted to do really well and focus on that for 10 years. And I just appreciated her pointing that out. It's the true goal of the word curriculum. In homeschooling, the true goal of curriculum is to find the thing that the child actually wants to do and could be very, very good at, that the world needs them to be good at. And so that's the goal. That's what the curriculum should favor, should produce, should accomplish. If it's not accomplishing that, it's accomplishing some other goal, which I'm not saying is a wrong goal, but it would be second place to that first place goal. The first place goal is we want to raise children who are very good at doing something that they love doing, that the world needs from them. Pause for effect.
Dude, don't make me talk. You don't want me to talk again. I already did the Darth Vader thing.
If I was on desktop, I would use the applause button on my voice mod.
No, please, no one ever use applause when I say that line, ever.
Oh, great. Now I'm going to spam you with applause every single time you talk.
Okay,
Thank
got
you
it.
very much for that.
Please don't do that. Yeah, no,
Release your hatred.
By the way, John, any thoughts, any question here at the end?
Daddy, when do you make the
Oh, yeah? as soon as I come off mute. That's awesome,
Perfect.
bud. Yeah, no, I just want to remind everybody to that these spaces are every Wednesday at 7, and I'm enjoying the topic. I'm absorbing as much as I can, and I'll obviously go back and listen again later. But with the 5 little ones here, yeah, I'm a very popular person. Hi, honey. But yeah, the spaces every Wednesday, 7 Eastern, and we announced it last week, but I'll announce it again. We launched the podcast, and oh my goodness, sorry, she's probably yelling. The podcast Twitter or X page is space, the Hive and Nest. There, if you got please do, and I will be uploading this space to the podcast either tonight or tomorrow, so that will be live on there as well. So look for the new podcast, and I've enjoyed the space, and thank you guys for coming.
I'm not trying to play favorites, but that was my favorite part of this entire session, is listening to those kids.
Y'all better all join that space.
Beautiful.
Like, subscribe, comment, etc.
Yeah, the podcast is available on wherever you get your podcasts at. Just look it up, Hive and Nest.
Yeah, with that, let's just a quick reminder. So at Bowtied Queen Bee in the highlights, you can always go back and listen to our spaces. We are uploading them to the Hive and Nest HS homeschooling podcast, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And John Sober Dad Pod is the guy that's helping us do that. We really appreciate him. He's been just the best, and he works behind the scenes tirelessly. It's amazing. And while getting pulled on from 5 directions from his children, might be 6 if you include the misses. And we're just so glad you're here. Come see us anytime at Bowtied Queen Bee, at Uncle Al on X, at Sober Dad Pod. Shoot us DMs anytime. If you ever have any questions, any thoughts, we are available through direct message anytime. We would love to hear from you. Do not be shy. Anything you got. And to our few storytellers, Nicole, really appreciated your chatting with us. Kins as well, or Dins is already, she checked out, but I really appreciated her chatting. And Free Willin' Homeschool Mama, she's great. We're really glad to have her here. KSJ, you are welcome every 7 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays, and you know it, Your Royal Highness. And Pogue, really always a pleasure to hear from you. And I hope to hear some more. I know that you are.
I want more Pogue too.
Yeah, for sure.
I want more Pogue.
The ferryman, the Phoenix who dies and resurrects.
Oh God, no, you're lying.
Ongoing
no one wants
and never nonstop.
What are you talking about?
We love it. We're really glad you're here. Thank you guys so much for listening. Queen Bee, shall we call it? Cheers.
Yeah. Bye,
Thanks,
guys.
everybody.
Thanks for showing up, for hanging out with us.
Thank you.
Everybody bow to the Queen. We end.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. If you'd like to contact us, please check the show notes, and don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you're listening to this.